You are about to hear Admiral Halsey's story by William F. Halsey and J. Bryan III, narrated by Jordan Walters. Copyright 2019 BN Publishing Online at bnpublishing.com. Admiral Halsey's story. Forward. It would require an extra chapter for me to list all the men who have helped me prepare this book. Certain of them, however, have been outstandingly prodigal of their efforts to make it complete and accurate. They have reminded me of important events I had forgotten and have sharpened my account of events dimly remembered. They have supplied names and dates, dispatches, and other documents. They have saved me from countless sins of omission and commission, and if here and there I have still fallen into pits of ignorance and tactlessness, it is largely because I overrode their advice. These special benefactors include the following former members of my incomparable staffs: Vice Admiral Robert B. Carney, USN; my Chief of Staff in the South Pacific and the Third Fleet, Captain H. Raymond Thurber, USN; my Operations Officer in the South Pacific, Captain Ralph E. Wilson, USN; my Assistant Operations Officer in the South Pacific, and my Operations Officer in the Third Fleet, Colonel Julian P. Brown, U.S. Marine Corps; my Intelligence Officer on the Enterprise and in the South Pacific, and Commander William J. Kitchell, USNR, my Flag Lieutenant for more than 3 years during the war. Other members of my staffs for whose help I am greatly indebted include Captain Leonard J. Dow, USN; my commissions officer from the outbreak of the war until July 1945, Captain H. Douglas Moulton, USNR; my flag secretary from 6 months before the outbreak until August 1943, and my Air Operations Officer from then until November 1945, Captain Harold E. Statson, USNR; my Flag Secretary from August 1943 until the termination of the war, with the exception of the same when he was a delegate to the United Nations Conference at San Francisco; and Lieutenant Herbert C. Carroll, USN, who served on my staff longer than anyone else, from June 1940 into November 1945. I am also indebted to Lieutenant Commander Frederick L. Gwynn, USNR, for his diligence in research, to Louis H. Bolander, the librarian of the United States Naval Academy, for furnishing me with many details pertinent to my early days in the Navy, to the Public Relations section of the Navy Department, for supplying many of the photographs, and for scrutinizing the manuscript for security, to the undeservedly anonymous authors of combat narratives issued by the Office of Naval Intelligence, for details of our early raids and of the South Pacific campaign, to the ship's clerk John W. Britzenhoff, USN, Chief Yeoman James W. Sands, USN, Yeoman First Class Albert C. Cedarstrom, USNR, and Yeoman First Class Joseph Bandovchek, USNR, for preparing the typescript, to Captain Jean Tunney, USNR, and Miss Tunney for graciously lending me their house at Hope Sound, Florida, in which delightful atmosphere most of my preliminary work was done, and to the Saturday Evening Post for kindly permitting me to reprint here such of my story as first appeared in its pages. And lastly, I have been particularly fortunate in having Lieutenant Commander Joseph Bryan III, USNR, as my collaborator. He is well known as a writer for the Saturday Evening Post, Collier's, the Reader's Digest, and other national magazines, and as the co-author with Phillips Reed of Mission Beyond Darkness, one of the most gripping books to come out of the war. The public knows less of his splendid war record. As an air combat information officer, he first saw action in the New Guinea campaign. Following a tour of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?